This is Take on the World with
Johnny
and Mike. And, people always ask me, hey, you got a podcast? What's it about?
I don't know. You ever want to cut your fingers off or learn about a sharp knife?
We could tell you that.
How about murder mysteries or hauntings or any kind of fringe subject?
Anything you could think of. We take on everything because we take on the world.
Now you go take on the world.
This show is part of the Deluxe Edition Network. To find the other great shows on the network, head over to the deluxeeditionnetwork.com.
Hello and welcome back to another episode of Deluxe Edition. I am your host, Casey Schearer. We're doing things a little different today. Joining me today will be, as my co-host, Jim Morganti, and we'll be interviewing Timothy Stevens. He's an upcoming writer, director, producer, editor, all that stuff. We talk about his movie, The Ghost Lights. But before that, let's just get the house cleaning out of the way. We are a part of the Deluxe Edition Network. You can find us over at deluxeeditionnetwork.com. And the podcast of the month this month is Metalhead Journeys. Check them out. They're a music podcast. They do all kinds of metal music reviews. If you're into metal music, check them out. Metalhead Journeys. We are at deluxeedition.show. You can find all of our previous shows over there. We are on Instagram and Twitter at Deluxe Edition Pod. We have merch over at whatamaneuver.net, and all the links will be in the description below. And if you'd like to support the show, you can go over to patreon.com/Deluxe Edition Pod. All right, here's our interview with Timothy Stevens, and go check out The Ghost Lights. Timothy, thanks for joining us, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is my co-host for this show, and he's here for a special reason, Jim Morganti.
Cool. Nice to meet you.
You're the writer, director, producer, editor, and everything.
Director of photography. Yeah. Play a small role. Yep. Yeah. Everything.
Yeah. Tell us about your movie, man.
Sure. Yeah. So, do you want me to start with like kind of a summary of like what it's about, and then we go from there?
Sure.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So the Ghost Lights it's a sci-fi thriller. It has kind of some elements of horror as well, and it tells the story of a young woman who she's a journalist, goes off to New York from Dallas to pursue her dreams of being a writer, and then she comes back home after the death of her father and discovers this mysterious cassette tape labeled October 15th, 1978. And as she listens to it, she hears her father interviewing this man who had a traumatic encounter with these strange lights out in West Texas. And she's become kind of estranged from her father and, missed the funeral. And so she decides to set off across this cross-state road trip to discover the truth about these lights and kind of amend that relationship with her father sort of after the fact, kind of connect with his memory. So as she goes, she listens to the tape and strange things start to happen along the way. So that's pretty much the summary of it. It's a road trip film. It's a sci-fi film. It's a film about regret, family, things we say or didn't say or wish we hadn't said. And it was a lot of fun. We shot during 2020, kind of in the heat of COVID. So it was we were able to get tested, do it safely, but it was honestly a nice reprieve from all of that as well, because we got to head out to big, beautiful West Texas to film this movie.
Were you there in so you were there when in 2020 were you in Terlingua?
So it says October 15th. That was literally the first day of filming. We filmed for about 12 days. So it was like the week before Halloween, roughly.
Nice. I used to live out in Austin, and
wow, cool.
Right in that year, I met this woman, one could say. Well, she's like, let's go out to West Texas. I was like, well, you know what's out there, right? In Marfa and in Terlingua, there's these Marfa lights and all the crazy stuff. So it was right when everything was shut down. So we hauled down to Southwest Texas, whatever, and and Terlingua, all the shots in the beginning of the movie that you recorded.
Yeah.
They were all. I was there, and it's so awesome. By the way, why is my?
Oh yeah, no, it's like something out of a Robert Rodriguez film. Like it really feels like. I mean, it feels like a movie set. Although it's about as authentic as you could possibly imagine. You know,
it has that. It has even. I'm not sure. We'll get into how much you had of a budget you had, but it has that big movie feel, just because of, I think, the scenery of Texas. You know.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, I went there for the first time in 2018 for Dia de los Muertos and also Halloween. They have a big celebration out there in the cemetery, and I was just so captivated by the setting. I knew at that point I didn't really have a story planned, but I knew at that point I had to come back to Terlingua to film, because it really is. It's a movie set that you can just kind of walk into, you know, except it's all real, which is pretty amazing.
Did you see anything? Because when I was there, now this is just me. Well, first of all, when you're in Terlingua, which, as we all know, means 3 tongues. But anyway,
maybe.
But when you're down there, it's I went down when everything was closed. And everything was open there because they're just like, you know, what's going on? It's so secluded from everything.
It really is. Yeah. I mean, the pandemic, obviously, it reached Terlingua, but not nearly like it did everywhere else. And of course, like, you know, there wasn't a lot of travel or tourism, which actually really hurt them. They survive on tourism, but it really was like, it was surreal. You know, we got like an Airbnb and we're out there under the stars. It's a no light pollution zone at this point. It's actually regulated. So really nowhere else in Texas do you get such beautiful, you know, starscapes, Milky Way, and it felt unreal. It felt like we were in like a different world, really.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
Other than I don't want to give too much away of the movie. I watched it this morning, but other than the ending, you use no like CGI or anything, right? That's just all the sky and all that stuff, right?
A little bit of CGI. I mean, we shot with the black magic, which is pretty light sensitive, but you can't really get people and stars in the same shot. Gotcha. So what we ended up doing is we had separate exposures for the sky, and then we put it together. So
okay. And you mentioned that before you went out there, you didn't have much of a story, but you said you wanted to come up with a story. So this is all something that you just came up with. No, this isn't based on anything that you heard about, or
it is loosely based on a conversation I had, actually. You know, you asked me if I saw anything. I assume you meant, did we see any ghost lights? We did while filming, and I'll get to that. But really what started all this is in 2019, I was in development for a paranormal travel TV show. So it was going to be like Destination Unknown with aliens or ghosts or Bigfoot, you know, like it could change. And, you know, unfortunately, like most shows in development, nothing happened with that particular show. But as a part of that, I did a bunch of research where I interviewed people that had experiences with strange things off in West Texas, because that's where we decided to place the first episode. And one man in particular had a close encounter with the light. And when I say close encounter, I mean like here to here, like very, very close. And it was a traumatic experience for him. You know, it was not neat or interesting or cool. You know, it really messed him up pretty bad. And, you know, that set with me a lot. And honestly, I want to go film with this guy, maybe do like some sort of documentary at some point. But his traumatic experience was really what led me to think, because I mean, growing up in Texas, we've all heard about the Marfa lights, but we never think about it as something that could like hurt us. You know, it's just a weird thing that happens, you know, in the desert. So that really was the inspiration for it. So it's not a direct adaptation by any means, but you know, I talked with this guy, and he was very reluctant to tell me this story. You know, he had every reason to see this as like an opportunity to maybe sell a book or something. Like there's good reason for him to like be open with me, but something about that experience was very harrowing for him. which got under my skin. And as a horror film writer, obviously I'm looking for anything that makes me feel uneasy or afraid, and that the look on that guy's face, I mean, it's with me even right now. So,
wow.
Do you think like you've connected any of these lights with anything, almost like the northern lights, or like the energy of the earth, almost like the orgon? Like, I mean, I don't know if you've ever looked into orgon, the orgon energy and orgonite, or I know they're a little different, but it's almost like the sexual energy, the deep, throbbing sexual energy of the earth. And when you're out there, it's, I hiked Big Bend, which is right, next to Terlingua.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just there's something different about that place that it's almost like cosmic, spiritual. You're looking out, and I could see the flat earthers, how they're like, it's flat, man, because you're looking out and it's flat. Like it is. I remember I shot a little video, and I was literally, it's beautiful. The top of Big Bend, and it's I haven't seen any lights there though. I was looking because I love stargazing.
Was there a question in there somewhere?
Yes, which I was getting to. How did you feel? Not like, crotchily, but like when you saw this light, did you feel anything different? Because I felt I met somebody down there one time. Well, twice. She was not, but anyway, but you could feel something like internally when you're there. Like, did you feel anything from that?
Well, yeah. So when we were filming, the latter half of the film, we shot pretty much sequentially. So it was like a literal road trip from Dallas to Terlingua, 750 some odd miles. And when we got there, we actually filmed some of the final scenes first. And then we had a scene that was like some driving that we needed, just like wide open space with not a lot of light pollution. And I knew that the road headed into Marfa was pretty much what we needed. So we were filming in Alpine, got a shot off, and then went off to get our driving scene, and got it. And then I knew that we were right near the Marfa Lights viewing station. So I just said, hey guys, like, we're done for the day. Let's go see if we can see the Marfa Lights. And, it's not like clockwork. Like, they don't just like show up at the same time every night. Some nights, some weeks, you won't see them at all. But we got there, and there's a bunch of people that had been camped out looking for him. I guess they lost patience and decided to leave. And so as everyone was leaving, I was like, hey, y'all, I've done enough research. We need to hang out for a minute. It's actually a little early for the lights. And about 10, 15 minutes later, we saw this little orange light off in the desert. And I knew it was all like public land. So there's no highways over there. There's no ranches. I mean, it could have been someone with a flashlight, I guess, treading where they're not supposed to be going. But we watched it, and it kind of rose up a little bit, started to kind of go like this. And then it split into two. And it started kind of doing this like back and forth thing. And then those two became four, and it started going like this. And they're all
everybody knows flashlights can't split into two.
No. Well, and then it rose probably 50 feet in the air, and they're going like this, and they split in four different directions. And they just all start doing their own thing, like figure eights, like circles. They start changing colors to like blue to red to orange to green. And then this lasted for about 30 minutes. And as this was happening, like, we all just kind of forgot that we could probably capture this. Like, we had cameras, we had phones. And there's actually a term for this that a lot of paranormal researchers have called paranormal apathy. So it's this thing that happens is that when you're in the presence of something that's so inexplicable, you forget that you could do something about it, that you could live stream on Facebook, that you could capture a picture really quick. You could pull out our like legit professional cameras. And, 30 minutes passed as we're basically just like, you asked if we felt something. We were kind of like transfixed, like just, we couldn't look away. And then, as quickly as they came, they split back into two, and then one, and then twinkled off. It was like a reverse, like they just hit reverse on a VCR. And then it was at that point that we were all like, shit, we could have filmed that. Like, what just happened? It was really wild. And, people have been researching this. It happens often enough over the last 100 years that, like UT Austin did a study on it. There's a man that has like really high end cameras that are like long exposure video cameras that are stationed out there permanently. So he's constantly downloading to hard drives and just getting the stuff. And, no one knows what the hell they are.
That's my question. I was just going to say, so, I mean, it's definitely something that happens, but has there ever been an explanation as to what they are? Or what
there's theories, we actually have a scene in the film where we kind of like throw out some of the theories that people have said. Some say it's like swamp gas. There's a lot of pockets of, natural gas out there, and sometimes they can like ignite in heat, but those go up and then they're gone.
And what's
it's like a
spirit, right? That's what we turn into, right? We turn into gas.
Sure. Yeah. There's lots of natural explanations that people have thrown out, like, haze causing reflection of light. Plasma has been thrown out there. I don't know about the plasma thing. These things seemed intelligent to me. They like had an agenda as they were flying around. The Apache, who are the Native American tribe that has been out there, their theory is exactly that the lights are the spirits of their forefathers, because the Apache were displaced mostly by Mexican army, and the local belief is that it's lights leading the people back home, almost like searchlights, like little beacons saying, "This is where you belong. Come back home." So that's an explanation I like a lot. It's not where we go in the film necessarily, but it's one that I like to think about.
It does go back to like, okay, if you think about what's gas is a release of an emission from a carbon, which is us, a spirit. So if it is plasma, like, and it's the spirits of the earth, I mean, what else could it be than if it is plasma? It's like the sexual energy of the earth. And what's plasma? It's a big load of energy, right, coming out.
Sure, all right.
And so it's our souls and spirits, which they call gas now. And they're like, oh no, it's just gas, because it's one of the three elements. And that's like the process of the earth, possibly. Just I'm just throwing it out there. What if that's all the process of the earth of? When we die, the spirit goes and it's a light body and everything. And then it just gets back in the ground and then comes back up as a new superhuman, or whatever we're called nowadays.
Who knows? Yeah. I mean, I'm open to every interpretation except that it's headlights, because that actually that's actually the least reasonable explanation.
Yeah.
That's what they were, and they almost, you're just, it's just headlight. I'm reading on Highway 67 how they're like, that's just headlights from the cars driving and whatnot. But they don't.
It can't be. There's no highway over there. So I mean, you're sitting like if here's a map. The viewing station is right here. This is Highway 67, and then everything this direction is the desert extending out into the Chihuahuan Desert, becoming Mexico. So there's no highway over there. So the explanation that it's headlights is just a stupid. It's an ignorant way to say I really don't know what's going on.
Yeah. When you were in Alpine, did you go to the? I was in Alpine. Actually, this was before Terlingua, and I met this person. Anyway, in Alpine, there's a McDonald. The look at the observatory.
Yeah, McDonald.
It's funny that. So I went in there and I was just like, they give you like a little tour and whatnot. And they have this huge telescope. It looks like a spaceship. And they never see anything in outer space. And they have all this technology and funding. But then you're just like some guy, on a road, just walking around maybe with your guitar and your back. And you're just like, oh, what the heck's that light? And you can see stuff here on Earth that we can't explain. But all these telescopes that they're getting money for, they're like, oh, we'll find it. We'll look up there. And I'm not saying the space is fake.
Well, not to go on a huge tangent, but one of the big inspirations for the ghost lights came after I read the Mothman prophecies. So it's the book if you are to believe John Keel, the writer, it's a nonfiction account of the collapse of the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant, West Virginia in 1969, something like that. And, you know, like the Men in Black are heavily mentioned in that, you know, but he had this term that he coined, which is called super terrestrial or ultra terrestrial. And so he completely like separates from the idea that, you know, these entities, whatever they are, that might be manning the UFOs or abducting people or whatever this, he separates from the idea that they are from out there in space. He thinks they're here on this Earth. And so this idea that, of course, that we're going to see aliens by looking up, if you listen to John Keel, he would say you're looking in the wrong place.
Yeah.
And again, that's, as a horror filmmaker, I'm like, oh, that's scary. Like, we are looking in the wrong place. You know, I'm looking here and it's like right fucking behind me, right?
And what's extra, you know, super terrestrial? It could just mean somewhere else, land that we don't know of, like extra terrain. And
other dimensional, you know, that's kind of, I mean, I don't want to give away about too much about the ghost lights, but these kind of like the exploration of these what ifs that we're presenting here, that's definitely like what I'm playing with here is, you know, the lights, you know, if they are not extraterrestrial, then what are they, you know? And of course, time plays into this a lot, ideas of, what is now, what is then, what is yesterday, what is the future, you know, and how these things kind of start to get fuzzy at certain times, you know, start to blur together.
I mean, everybody knows Einstein's quote, oh, well, time, it's not real. It's just an illusion. So if you apply that to space, which is, he also said it's time and space that we live in, space, therefore, up there, couldn't be what we think it is. It could be totally not an illusion as well. Mm-hmm. And just like time isn't real. And the space-time continuum is all this construct that we made when all this amazing things that we can't understand is like right in front of us. But I wanted to ask you, what do you have any favorite people like yourself or like ufologists or researchers or whatever that you like to read or look into or kind of like that inspired you?
Well, John Keel for sure. You know, everything about the Mothman prophecies. That's just a scary book. It's enlightening, but it's if you can suspend all your disbelief for just a little bit, read that book. It's terrifying. And you know, some people that I'm really into right now, Greg and Dana Newkirk. I don't know if you're familiar with them. They did a series called Hellier that's on Amazon Prime. It's also on YouTube. But they are kind of in the vein of John Keel, where they explore everything. You know, like they don't limit themselves to say we're just interested in the alien bit. We're just interested in the ghost thing. We're just interested in Bigfoot, you know. And actually, that's a really cool show because they start out looking for goblins in Western Kentucky and end up performing black magic rituals in a cave trying to summon the god Pan. And what that sounds like two different things. This is a documentary show. It sounds like those don't belong together, but when you watch the whole thing, there's like a direct line. Everything. Suddenly they're reading code that is coming out of the Book of the Law by Aleister Crowley, and like it's a It's wild. It's really wild. And everything they're into, I mean, I follow them on Facebook just to get inspired, you know.
Aleister Crowley gets he was obviously meant like something was wrong with him.
Oh, yeah,
but the stuff that he, like Thelema and that religion that goes back to Blavatsky and that's actually, you know, like science. It's not even, a lot of it is just nature. And that's all it is. It's not like this evil thing. It's just you get messed up people that they start you know, understanding the supernatural and the natural law, and they're like, well, how can we use this to our advantage? And they all meet.
I mean, that's Crowley's only, I mean, like flaw really is that he was completely self-interested and a bit of a demagogue, you know. Actually, I would love to see a modern take on his life, like a biopic of Aleister Crowley would be really cool.
And he was friends.
Yeah, I know, right? I need more money for that one.
Yeah,
we've got to go to Loch Ness in Scotland, and
let's get back into the Ghost Lights.
Yeah, absolutely.
Speaking of money, no, all good. How did you fund this movie? Was it an Indiegogo project or?
So, when we decided that we were going to make this film, it was after developing a whole bunch of projects, writing a bunch of feature screenplays, doing budgets, seeking investment, and kind of falling up short. And then the pandemic happened, and it became apparent that like the people that had money are not going to share it at this point. And it looked, honestly, at that time, it looked like the death of Hollywood. Like, it's just everything was so uncertain. And I kind of had an existential crisis where I'm like, I've got to make a damn movie no matter what. Like, I don't know what's after this pandemic resolves, but I've got to figure out how to make a movie now. So we wrote the script with a budget in mind. My wife took out some money on her 401k, God bless her soul, and we made the movie for about $7,000.
Oh, wow.
Just chump change, really.
Oh, yeah.
And then we did do a Indiegogo campaign for post-production because, I really wanted a top-notch soundtrack. There was some CGI that we needed to do. I wanted to make sure, because to me, that's the biggest thing that will take me out of a low-budget horror film is like if the effects are bad.
Sure.
So really most of the money kind of went into those two things. And then, of course, color correction and everything. But I edited the film, so that saved a lot of money there.
Yeah, well, you did a great job, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, thank you so much.
And that was actually one of the things I had in my notes is the soundtrack to it is fantastic.
Oh my God. So Brandon Moss, he's a buddy of mine. He actually did my first student short film. He did the soundtrack for that. And I was just like, when I got that stuff back from Brandon, I felt like completely unworthy, because it's so, we had a lot of he and I work really well together. Like he kind of just knows what I want, and I don't have to talk to him a lot, but, we discussed a couple of movies as inspiration. The Blade Runner soundtrack was a big inspiration for this, with those big like synth beds that kind of pulse through those real like fuzzy synth beds. And then also the soundtrack for Interstellar was a big inspiration. How time is a big theme of that movie, and how like if you actually listen to the Interstellar soundtrack, there's a clock in nearly every major piece of that film, just in the background. Sometimes it's very faint, and that idea of like kind of trying to bring the texture and the themes of the film into the orchestration is something we really took to heart. Like actually something he did is he recorded the entire soundtrack first on like top notch, like hi-fi audio. Synthesizers, and then we also had like an orchestra do parts of the main theme, and then he ran all of that into a tape deck, recorded it onto a tape, and then recorded that tape back out to digital. So he put a tape fuzz on everything, and of course that's a big part of the film is this texture of tape, and
right.
And then there are themes there about how memory is kind of like magnetism, and how tapes can fade over time just like memory, and stuff like that, but it's subtle. I don't think you would recognize it because it's not like really heavy tape fuzz, but it's definitely there. And you can listen to it. It's all on SoundCloud right now.
Oh, cool. Awesome.
So anybody that wants to go search the Ghost Lights on SoundCloud, whole thing is right there to listen to.
Awesome. And I just have one last question for you before we get your plugs. What was it like working with Billy Blair? What a great storyteller like that.
I know, right?
I don't know if you could have got a better person to play that role. I mean, that was so. I mean, I saw him, and that's what I was looking for on the shelf. I saw him in another movie.
Cherokee Tree.
That my friend absolutely. Todd did. Cherokee Tree.
Oh, you know Todd? No way.
Yeah.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, I was actually in
awesome.
Roseblood with Todd. I actually never met him, but I just know him from we were in the same Friday the 13th movie.
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah, Billy's awesome. Most people know him from the Machete films. He was in Sin City, A Dame to Kill, maybe the first one too. Rob Zombie's 3 from Hell. And, he plays a lot of like bad guys. That's kind of because he's got a look, right? Like he can look like a villain really easily. And, I had met him years ago, probably a decade ago, and I asked him at that point, like, what kind of film would you love to be in, like, that you haven't really gotten a chance to exercise some of your acting skills in? And he said, I really want like a quiet movie, like, every film I'm in that has me screaming and, like gunning down Robert De Niro with an AK, right? I kept that in mind. And when I wrote this character, Mario, who is really haunted by this experience he had with the lights, and Mario is more or less based on the dude that I actually talked to that had the experience with the lights. It's quiet, and he's well spoken. He's kind of poetic, and he's a storyteller. And it was something that, honestly, like when I sent him the script, the first thing he sent back to me was like, seriously, dude? Because it's long stories that he tells. And, what I told him was like, listen, this doesn't have to be verbatim, internalize the story. And then if you just deliver the story as if you actually experienced it and we go off script, no big deal. And while he did hit a lot of the major beats that are actually verbatim in the script, there's a couple of times he just told the story, and that was actually kind of magical, because I wanted all of those scenes to feel kind of documentary-esque, so we didn't storyboard any of it. We had 2 cameras going. I told the other guy to just move around if things start to get really intense on the delivery, like get up close and personal. So there's times when the camera is like this close to Billy as he was telling this story of these experiences. And I think it feels really authentic. And by the time we were done with those scenes, like we all pretty much like gave him a standing ovation, because we kind of felt like we had been sitting by a fire listening to someone tell their life story. Which is crazy, because we all knew it was scripted, right? But we really felt like he made it so believable. So it was really cool, and it's definitely out of the norm for his normal, like, watch Cherokee Creek. That's another world compared to this film.
Anything else, Jim?
Yeah, it says he's the grandson or related to Edgar Allan Poe.
Yes.
So maybe that's why he has that. Yes, like that.
Billy Blair is?
Yeah.
What?
Oh,
yeah,
wow.
yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yep. I'm not. It's a little more distant than like great grandson, but he and actually the first time I saw him was at a goth club in Dallas called The Church. Really cool place that we're actually making a documentary about right now. But I met him, and he was sitting on a really plush red velvet couch and sipping, I want to say it was absinthe or something, but he had a top hat on and like some sunglasses kind of down like Ozzy Osbourne style, and he's wearing like a brocade coat with tall boots. And he looked like Edgar Allan Poe, or if Edgar Allan Poe were to like be alive today, maybe that's what he looked like.
Casey, surprised you. Me and Casey, we try to see who does the most research before the podcast, and obviously Casey didn't come prepared, so I'm just gonna write it down. I was more prepared, Casey.
Tick on the make a mark for you.
Timothy, great job on this movie, man. I really enjoyed it. Tell everyone where they can find it. It's available everywhere now, right?
It is, yeah. So the Ghost Lights is out now. Pretty soon we're going to be rolling out to like AVOD, which is like advertised-based stuff. You can watch it on YouTube. We're actually Terror Films is going to do a big release along with Kings of Horror in October. Those dates aren't settled yet, so that's kind of to be determined. But for now, you can watch it on Amazon Prime, Apple TV, Microsoft Movies, YouTube Movies. There's an app called Film Is Now that you can watch it on, Google Play. And this is actually a really good time to help us out as filmmakers, because as I said, I'm basically in debt on this film, Sure. And right now it's rent by, and we actually see the biggest share of that. Versus like getting little sense of advertising, a commercial that might come through. So, sure. So check it out, rent it, buy it. Pretty soon we'll actually have some physical media that we'll be selling, probably towards the end of the year. So that'll be really good. But yeah, go check it out. Probably Amazon Prime is the easiest thing for most people to go.
Yeah, I actually, I'm not sure who I was originally in contact with, but they sent me a screener for it. But I actually rented it this morning so I could watch it on my I didn't want to watch it on my phone, so I watched it on television. So
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, that's the way to see it. We shot it in, it's big widescreen anamorphic. It's unfortunate that indie filmmakers, we don't get to show our films on big screens very much. So
sure,
the bigger you can make it, the better.
Absolutely. Yeah, and if you send me all the links for all that stuff, I will put it all in the description. So all people will have to do is just click on a link in the description in order to
absolutely.
find
I'll send that. And actually, if people go to our website, spectrographfilms.com, SPCTROGRAPH.com, there's films, the ghost lights. Click on that, and then we actually have hot links to everything as well. And then our social rail is on the bottom. Spectrograph Films, pretty much everywhere. More movies on the way. We actually have 2 other feature films kind of in various stages of completion right now. So trailers are on the website for those as well, so you can check those out.
Awesome. Well, we will have you back on then when they are available, when they're ready.
Right on. Well, thanks, guys.
Thank you so much, man. We appreciate it. And nice job. Good job on this film.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, man. Mm-hmm. Thanks for watching, everybody. Ray and I will be back on Sunday night with Ron from Barrel Aged Flicks. They are part of the Deluxe Edition Network. And if you like the show, make sure you subscribe on YouTube or anywhere else that podcasts are found. If you listen on iTunes, give us a review. And if you listen on Spotify, click there's a 5-star rating you can give us on there. All right, thanks. See you next week. Oh, and after that, we'll have Jane Badler from V, the 1980s series with our friend Mark Singer. All right, see you, folks.